Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of boards, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series where we take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. With this video, I'll be reviewing the rulebook Dungeon Babies, designed by Jason Bradley Thompson for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my content, consider using my affiliate links for online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/Rogue Watson. What is Dungeon Babies? Well, have you ever thought to yourself, I would like to play a full-grown adult adventurer with all the powers of an adult adventurer, but as a baby with all the limitations and weaknesses of a newborn baby? Oh, you haven't? You haven't considered that? Well, neither have I, to be frank. This is a very hilariously comprehensive and detailed rulebook modification onto existing D&D 5e that allows you to play as superpowered babies, specifically a newborn at level 1 all the way up to about a 2-year-old at level 9 until you graduate from being a babydom. It includes all these new rules, all these feats and spells and class modifications and abilities, a bunch of tables. It is amazingly comprehensive and very well designed to where I was, you'd think this is a joke, and it is it's still kind of a joke. But the idea is you're playing purposefully weak, limited characters who also have maybe some kind of fun special abilities about them, and everybody's in on the joke, which is what makes it work. So the DM is in on it, and they're making sure the world is correct for this level, and then the players are all in on it, and they're having a lot of fun with it, hopefully. And that's how you can buy into this system. It is 75 pages of a crap ton of content, and I'm very, very impressed, and I'm trying to be unbiased because Jason is also best known as Mockman, who does those, if you just Google his name, but it's these D&D adventure walkthroughs, which I'm going to do a rare flip to my full webcam mode, because I actually have these displayed in my office. I just moved into this office like a couple weeks ago, by the way, new office, new house. I have framed and displayed. He sent them to me whenever he sent this review. I think it was like a year ago at this point, because I'm so behind on my backlog. That is really, really fun, cool stuff. There are these fun walkthroughs where they go through the old classic adventure D&D modules, dungeon crawls, and they have little kind of pathing that you can watch all the characters go through, and it's a ton of fun. So an artist as well as a designer, which always makes me pretty jealous. We're going to go through this rule book because I didn't know what to expect when I looked at it, and now I came away being pretty impressed with it. And I appreciate that there's a lot of introduction and buy-in that the designer has to do here, because you have to sell me on this concept. It is such a goofy, weird concept. Like, I'm picturing, okay, like Muppet Babies. Like, I watched that cartoon back in the day. They went on adventures and things. Are we talking like actual, like real violence, or like Looney Tunes level violence? And the designer also covers that. There's a content level sidebar here where it's like, yeah, you can play as, violently and dark humor with dead baby jokes left and right if you want, or you can literally play it where, the enemies are just trying to hug the babies, or they're attacking with, it's like an edutainment thing where they're like have lollipops and they're trying to give them, too much sugar or something. Like, you can really just go whatever content level everyone is comfortable with. So character creation for Dungeon Babies, which are basically like a magical babies who, and their origins are supposed to be purposely vague. You can kind of make up whatever rules are, but they're dropped off by this mysterious stork basically in front of a dungeon and said, okay, you need to go, get treasure and kill things in order to level up. And literally they eat treasure and they gain like 1 XP for 1 GP or something. So it's all about leveling up and progressing, because the whole point is not to amass wealth or something as a baby. Your point is to grow up. Jason is a new parent and even talks about the fact that they had a first child recently, and you can tell that there's a lot of wit and insightfulness from being a parent. My youngest is weeks away from turning 3 years old, so I am painfully aware of the idiosyncrasies and all the weirdness and the trials and tribulations of raising a small human who still has to learn everything about everything, and how much weight that puts on a parent if you want to do a halfway decent job. And that's all actually like integrated into the system basically through the baby feet system, where you actually like you don't have anything when you start off. You can't even move. That's a feat you have to take, which we'll get to feats in a second. So ability scores, your mental abilities are the same as an adult level adventurer. And by the way, your skills and everything are the same as well. However, your strength, con, and dex are only a 1d4. So you have the physical limitations of a newborn child. However, you might think, well, how the fuck can I play, a martial? Well, that's where the special class abilities come in. So, for example, one of the special abilities of fighters and barbarians, I think it's fighters and barbarians, they have normal adult level strength, so they can roll for normal strength levels. I think it's a paladin that has normal constitution, and then obviously like rogues and monks and maybe rangers can roll for normal dexterity in order to let their systems work. So it actually creates a fairly balanced system in the fact that it nerfs the shit out of everybody and starts them off pretty weak, but it still feels weirdly balanced among them. All the players themselves still feel like they're fairly balanced out. Most of this book, or a good chunk of it, is dedicated to the class modification rules. Classes have just slightly different abilities that maybe play on the unique parts of being a baby. For example, baby chaos is something that players can roll, where just it kind of encompasses the natural insanity of having a baby around and all the weird stuff they can get into and unpredictability that babies have. So that's a whole table of things you can roll. Some of them are good. It's basically similar to kind of wild magic, although it was completely original and actually. And yes, you can like poop yourself. Like that's things that can happen, and there are rules for that, which is hilarious. There's crying, and there's feats that can make crying more powerful. There's feats that can make your poop more deadly and awful. It really goes all the way in terms of all of these abilities. And you also get Jason's absolutely hilariously awesome original artwork throughout here, which works really, really well. I'm trying to get to the feat section because I think that's one of my favorites. All right, so here we go. Baby feats are an expression of a dungeon baby's natural talents and their road to growing up, which you gain a feat. I should go back to the progression. You gain a new feat every time you level up, a new baby feat. So it literally feels like you were going through child development, and it goes really quick. That's why, for those of you that aren't parents or aren't as familiar with child development, that's why we go, we count by months for the first 2 years especially. We go, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, because those are all big milestones. And there is a big difference between a 12-month baby and an 18-month baby, for example. And I really like the fact that's reflected here by gaining new feats, which are all of these progressions in growing up. Literally, you can move by crawling or, kind of toddling, or you can learn how to grasp objects because initially you can't even hold anything. Although it does say when you first, spawn into the world, you have like your weapons like strapped to your hands basically, so you can still operate them. You can grow teeth. You can become potty trained. You can actually eat food. You can speak. These are all very important things, and yes, it's part of the weirdness of all playing babies together. Is it's just supposed to be kind of ridiculous, but like it's so thoroughly well thought out and examined, and I appreciate it both as somebody who has played a lot of D&D and maybe looking for unique things to try, and also someone who is a parent and can very much feel all of these things make sense, and it's the joke or the exasperation or the knowing glances that parents can share amongst each other. That doesn't mean you have to be a parent to enjoy this game, or even have whatever younger siblings or something to where you can feel for it. I think everybody generally gets a lot. You understand that babies cry, they crap themselves, they put things in their mouths. Like everybody kind of understands those universal features of a baby. So yeah, you don't have to be a parent to enjoy this system. But what I really enjoyed. The layout, the professionalism, this reads like a official rule book with how just detailed and how much content. I mean, there's dozens of new spells. I love the fact that it goes over and over like all the various unique qualities of a baby. Like despite you have all your class abilities still, you also have a lot of limitations. And what that means, you gain the ability to eat food and drink milk, which can actually help restore your hit points. You can't even rest without having to make like saves because it's very hard, for example, to get babies to go to sleep, which I like that that's a thing. crying is a big deal and how you can manipulate around crying. Crying is also tied into how a barbarian rages, which I think is absolutely amazing. Here's the baby chaos table, which is technically a D100, but it's obviously there's not 100 entries here, but it's still a lot of really fun things where you can like shit your pants, you can crawl around, you can attack a random person, you can projectile vomit, you can release a stinking cloud around yourself, you become tangled in your clothes, just a whole bunch of really crazy shit that can happen. And I think it works. I think it works pretty well for the most part. I couldn't see anything that I was like, all right, and part of this is, again, you have to be able to buy into that system. So first, if you buy into this, then I think the rest of it will come and work pretty well. It does have class modifications for 14 classes. That does not include Artificer. I don't know if this was done before Artificer or the designer decided to not do Artificer. And it does divide the Ranger into two different classes called the Hunter and the Beastmaster. So again, this might have been designed before maybe the Ranger redesign, which tried to kind of fix the Rangerness, and it's the Hunter specifically is the bow specialist, and the only one that can use, I love the picture, the only one that can actually use a longbow, whereas the Beastmaster is all about using obviously animals, and you've got everybody can use a stuffed animal, but they gain more abilities from it, and you can actually have a bunch of little tiny critters following you around, which is of course just endlessly cute. So the feats are awesome. The baby chaos table is awesome. It goes over the unique equipment. So it doesn't just say jokingly, because I read earlier, like, okay, what do they have for equipment? It's like you've got, diapers and a stuffed animal and your crayons. Like, okay, that's cute. And that's all I thought. I thought it was just flavor. And then you get to the equipment section. It's like, oh no, these are actually all like things that matter in the game. Like crayons mean they give you resistance to certain damage, or a diaper lets you change your diaper. And if you don't even have a diaper on hand and you despawn, you're essentially, the baby equivalent of killed without a diaper. You can't be running around without a diaper. A milk bottle can help you get your food points without having to have the grasp feat or the improved grasp feat. So all of these things actually matter in the game. There are a ton of amazing tables. And yes, I'm having to montage through this because there's a ton of content. You can forage for food in terms of all the things that babies put in their mouths, which is also distressing. Your favorite foods, which this is probably even crazier than the baby chaos table. This one reminds me of a straight up wild magic table where some of them are really great. Like you gain, you double in size, you get the haste spell, you fly around, you can spew like, fire breath or something, to, oh God, you just shit yourself uncontrollably, or what is this? The baby's poop comes alive and releases a black pudding. It's just absolute insanity once you eat certain foods. And magical effects happen. And it does say on there, hey, by the way, this may be too much. Does it say, since these rules make dungeon babies even more unpredictable, DM is welcome to disregard them. Because even the designer's like, this may be a bit over the top. The spells are really good. There's over 30 new spells. So there were over 30 new, of those feats, which were the baby feats. And now there are over 30 spells. All of them are hilariously thematic to the whole baby thing. You can childproof an enemy's weapons. You can create a wall of toys to block them out. You can become a flying embryo that can cast all these spells and have certain magical abilities. You can summon Mordenkainen's wondrous walker to help move around, although you do have to have the rollover and crawl feats in order to move your legs. Otherwise, the walker really requires no benefit, which is correct. And in fact, the jury's out on whether or not those are actually helpful or not. So I really liked all these very interesting spells that feel hilariously thematic with the entire Dungeon Baby concept. And then I'm actually going to read a piece that maybe this section could have probably been put at the very beginning versus the end. So you got all the character creation stuff, all the rules and things, and then you get to the, hey, here's how you should probably play this stuff. So I'm not going to put it as a con, but maybe as a slight piece of advice. I may have actually would have rather seen this whole, like, how do you play this concept? How do you get part of that buy-in to even want to do this? Maybe put this at the beginning. Even though there was already good introductions in the beginning, I think this would be really helpful to have. And it's really good advice for players and for DMs. There's also straight up examples of playing. There's advice on which adventures work well, which it says, hey, probably stick to big dungeon crawls. A lot of classic D&D adventures, which are basically just big dungeon crawls, work better than the like modern 5e campaigns, which are more like linked adventures that have an overland map, because babies can't move very well. So you don't want them to be, moving across country or anything like that. So all of that is pretty helpful. I did want to read this one paragraph, which I think actually sums everything up very, very well. Dungeon Babies is meant to be absurd. Embrace the ridiculousness of babies pooping themselves, wielding pole arms, and slowly making their way down a dungeon corridor by flipping over from their belly to their back. Babies are fickle, and allies might become enemies or vice versa. Let the dice fall where they may, whether a scenario ends with the babies victorious or killed and transported back to Virage, which is this mystical realm that the babies come from. If the adventurers fail, perhaps the stork will bring in a new batch of babies to try again. Which I think is pretty well summation of how this is supposed to work. It's supposed to be pretty challenging, so maybe err on the side of, everybody's laughing it up and characters are dying. In fact, in the example play, which is this page right here, one of the player characters dies like with the very first trap. They're like, I'm dead, and then everybody laughs and moves on and keeps playing. So that part's a little weird to me, where it's meant to be the very quick permadeath thing, because you're playing like level 1 through 9 and you have very, very weakened abilities. I mean, imagine having a con of 1d4, unless you're like the one class that doesn't have a 1d4 constitution. Most traps and things are going to be very, very difficult for everybody involved. So, and the DM can obviously, modify things to help change that and make it work. But I think everybody has to be aware of what's going on here and how to play this section. Also, really great original character sheet here, which is really fun. It includes the baby chaos table right on the character sheet and quick rules on the back. I just take the whole baby thing out of it for a second. This is actually a very well written rule book. It's well organized. It's detailed. It's easy to read. I was just pumping through 75 pages like it was nothing. There's no dense lore or confusing rules. And you can kind of pick and choose, like that magical food table, for example. You can even decide not to use that because maybe that's too much. So I think it's really, really well designed. And then you add the whole baby thing on top of it, and it's funny. I was giggling and laughing and nodding my head and smiling throughout this whole thing. It's very, very enjoyable to be able to read and parse. All right, let's go over my pros and cons for Dungeon Babies. I keep wanting to sing the Dungeon Babies. That was a really, really fun con. I think they remade it at some point. I remember one of my kids was watching that at one point. Pros, 14 modified baby classes with special abilities from levels 1 through 9. Every single dungeon baby gets a class modification update where it slightly changes how they work, mainly using, like the baby chaos table or the crying mechanic, or like the druid can transform into plants, and the fact that everybody's weaker and they have less abilities. So, the fighter can automatically identify weapons. I think it's only the wizard which really doesn't have any changes because you already have all your mental abilities and things, other than you have like your spell book is more like a collection of like drawings and things, which is cute. There's also a really cool, I think it was a spell that allows you to draw enemies or objects and have them come to life, which is really cool. Reminds me of like certain Final Fantasy classes. It was neat. So very, very nice. And this is very easy to run through and read because it's not a big, confusing system. It just slightly changes everybody based on the new rules that were provided. Pro, over 30 baby feats that accurately and humorously encompass early child development. This is absolutely amazing that it actually takes into effect. I have an almost 3-year-old who's not quite potty trained yet. So you won't gain all these feats as you level up. You'll pick and choose. Do you want to be more into, speaking or more into walking? You will gain a lot because you gain 1 new feat every single level. So you'll have 9 by the end of it, but there are over 30 that are included here. So no baby is going to be absolutely perfect on everything. So you can kind of pick and choose from there, or just gain really hilarious powers like a deadly thunderous crying attack, for example. So this is, to me, what really makes this system work, because if you were literally just playing weak player characters, I think that would get old fast. But if you're playing weak player characters who then kind of make up for it with these slightly interesting, otherworldly abilities that you might not normally see in a game of D&D, then I think that's going to drum up that interest level and help balance things a little bit. Not in terms of like, oh, I feel just as powerful, but like, okay, well, now I've got these other tools that I can at least take advantage of it while I'm flopping around on the ground. Pro, dozens of clever, thematic, and interesting spells, perfectly designed for baby adventurers. These were amazing new collection of spells. A large assortment of fun tables, the baby chaos table, the random words table, the things to eat table, the food effects table, all of these really made me excited to jump. I'm trying to scroll through. There we go. To look at and roll some of these tables because they are very interesting and fun. I think one of the best tables in the player handbook is, of course, the Wild Magic table, and a lot of these definitely have that, where it's like the lower half is very bad, the top half is very, very good. A lot of risk reward, which a lot of players enjoy. Pro, helpful tips and advice for players and DMs, including content levels, recommended adventures, and examples of play. I would probably put that in the beginning of this book, but the fact that it's all included in there, I know, and there's even, a proper introduction at the beginning as well that has insight from the designer who talks about like, hey, here's where I'm coming from, here's where I made this. I like, limiting myself with weaker characters, and I enjoy reflecting all the things I've learned from being a parent of a new child, and also how to incorporate that in D&D. And then there's all these different ways of helping to get that buy-in from the players and from the DM as well. And Pro, an absolutely excellent layout with this awesome original artwork, which I was definitely not disappointed when I saw his name on there. And the custom character sheet is very, very nice as well. Cons, I really don't have any official cons. I mean, this goes really above and beyond in terms of what I was expecting to get. As a rule book, again, even if you take the whole Dungeon Baby out of it, it's just very well designed. It's professionally laid out. There's no editing issues or anything of that nature, and it all looks like the designer has a good handle on what he wanted to do, the concept, and the execution of making it all feel, at least, again, I haven't played this system, so I can't talk about that far of it, but at least feels like it's very well balanced and would work in an actual game. Final verdict, hilariously comprehensive and impressively detailed, Dungeon Babies is designed with the loving care of a professional rulebook and the wit and wisdom of an insightful parent. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel, and support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Shout out to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, Brandon, Genocider, David, Eclectic, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Brian, William, Corey, Koa1337, Big Nut, John, Chris, Scott, Gene, Eric, Dan, Tyler, Nathan, Camp Crystal Lake Counselor, Big Shep, Andrew, Daryl, The Rildoran, and Matt. Gold patrons RPG, Paper Crabs, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard Lounge, Sam, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fastica, Tortoise, Scott, Refus, Carolyn, and William. Thank you all very much for your support.